What do you want to get off your chest that you may need advice on? Am I the unreasonable one for taking my grandparents' house? I am, 26 years old female. My grandparents are both 68. My maternal grandparents moved from England to Brooklyn, New York in the 80s and were lucky enough to afford a 5-bedroom townhouse which they shared with my mom, my aunt and uncle. They were young parents, so there was an age gap between my mom and my siblings, so the majority of their early years in America, my grandparents just shared the house with my mom. My mom had me when she was 16, so we lived in that house until I was about 10 when she got her own house. We still lived in Brooklyn, and luckily, due to what my mom studied, she got a well-paid career, and receiving an inheritance, she basically managed to buy the house outright. Fast forward to 2015, my mom died suddenly and I inherited the house along with a substantial amount of money and my own family inheritance which my grandparents set up for me and my 4 cousins. The house was a good enough size for me and my then boyfriend. We welcomed a daughter a few months later and later married. Last year, my husband and I decided to try again for a baby, and I got pregnant quite quickly. We learned we were having twins, and despite the house being 3 bedrooms, we agreed it was too small to raise 3 kids in. Now, house prices in NY are insane anyway, but with the sale of the house and using some of the money I received inheritance-wise, we were in a situation we could luckily either buy a 4-bedroom property outright or at least put a large deposit down to bring down mortgage costs. Well, it turned out my grandparents were looking to downsize, and I don't know how this came up, but they suggested I could take their house and they could take mine, and I'd just pay them the difference in what their house is worth. It would be a couple of $100,000, but husband and I had the money. We had a lot of discussions and met with lawyers and eventually came to an agreement. I'm currently 7 months pregnant and the sale was finalized. We've all started preparing to move, and it's caused a lot of ill feeling in my family. All my cousins have branded me and offer taking advantage of our grandparents. My grandparents have retaliated and said it was their idea, my husband and I paid them for the property, and that nobody was taken advantage of. My hormones are all over the place and it's stressing me out as I don't know if I'm in the wrong or not. Also, I should add, even if my grandparents kept the house, my aunt and uncle would have received it as an inheritance as they're my grandparents' kids. My cousins would have just received money and probably some heirlooms or something. Am I the unreasonable one for not giving my cousin his share of my inheritance? I, 25F, am the oldest great-grandchild of my great-grandparents, and my brother, 22M, is the second. When we were born, my great-grandparents set aside trust funds for each of us that have grown to about $200,000 each. I'm planning on using my money for a down payment on a house eventually. Now, my great-grandparents both passed away before my cousin, 18M, was born. Since he didn't exist when my great-grandparents were setting aside money in their wills, he didn't get anything from them. My aunt, cousin's mom, recently found out about the trust funds and became incensed that her child didn't receive anything. She messaged me and my brother telling us that she knows we will do the right thing and split all our money 3 ways so that it's fair, because that's what your great-grandparents would have wanted you to do. I talked to my grandmother, and she said her parents gave me and my brother that money for us to use and that it's completely up to us if we want to share it or not. She also made a good point that since there are now 30+ great-grandchildren, if my aunt really wanted it to be fair, then we would have to dole out the money among every other great-grandchild and everyone would end up getting less than $15K. I'm not sure what the right thing to do is. My brother and I have discussed it, and we agree that it's technically not fair for my cousin to not get anything. On the other hand, my cousin's other grandparents, that I am not related to, are billionaires with a capital B, and he's their only grandchild, so he is set to inherit everything from them and is in no way hurting for money. My parents think that my brother and I should ignore our aunt and keep the money to use it to pay off any debts and get a head start on our adult lives. Though I didn't do anything to earn the money and would be fine if I did give some of it up. Would we be unreasonable if my brother and I kept our inheritances even if it isn't fair to our cousin? Update: thank you everyone for the advice. This has really made us feel better about keeping the money. I'm going to write a letter to my aunt saying that although I understand where she's coming from, we are going to use the inheritances as our great-grandparents left them for us specifically. Am I the irrational one for telling my child that starting now and into the foreseeable future I'm always going to agree with his dad's side of things? This is so embarrassing I can't believe I'm sharing it on the internet, but I'm sure as hell not telling my friends. So my husband and son have always had issues. We gave our kids a lot of opportunities and my husband feels like our son threw everything away. He graduated college 3 years ago with barely passing grades and wanted to start his own company. We both urged him against it, but I convinced my husband to give him the first part of his trust and let him make his own mistakes. My son wants to be a sock designer. I'm not knocking that, but it sounds pretty hard to break into. Well, my son blew through the money, sketched up a lot of socks with very little results and came crawling back for more money. My husband was furious and I'm an idiot, so I gave my son a very small amount of money from my personal inheritance. He blew through that as well and my husband was not happy with me. Now my son has his girlfriend pregnant, no money, no job, and when we try to give him suggestions, he says we want him to be more traditional and masculine like his father and brother. I don't care if he wants to be a sock designer, but at some point you have to put your dreams aside and take care of your responsibilities. At the same time I feel hypocritical, because I got to do what I was passionate about with a lot of help from my dad, but it was somewhat more feasible than being a sock designer. So my son and his girlfriend came over the other day and the girlfriend asked me to help buy baby clothes. I said that I would and she asked if she could just have the money because she doesn't like my taste. I told her I went to Starbucks this morning and they're hiring. Now I realize that was a little bishy, but who asks someone for money like that? Well, my son told me I need to treat them both with more respect and my husband said it's hard to respect someone who currently sleeps on a couch. They got into a screaming match and my husband told him to take his slums project girlfriend and get out. I did bish at my husband when they left for saying that. My son called me very upset and asked for some more money from my inheritance. I told him absolutely not and he accused me of loving his father more than him. I thought that was a weird thing to say, because of course I love my husband more than anyone. I didn't tell my son that. I told him his dad was right about everything, except the slums project thing that was uncalled for, and from now on I will always take his dad's side. He called me a bitch and hung up. The fiancé, 33, of my mom, 34, is likely having a sexual relationship with my sister, 14, and I don't know what to do. Names have been changed to protect privacy. Kyle and my mom have been together for about 4 years now. For the past 1 to 2 years or so, he's been acting horrible towards her and treating her like dirt. Insulting her, blaming her for everything, expecting her to do everything for him, etc. He never shows this in front of us kids, always when they're in their room, which he practically forces her to be in a majority of the time. She doesn't like it, but feels that she has to please him, or via texts and stuff. He's gotten mad at her to the point of putting a dent in the wall. It's a very verbally and mentally abusive relationship to my mom, and she honestly doesn't deserve someone treating her like that. She honestly tries her best for us. As of late, Kyle has started to treat Jane, my 14-year-old sister, very nicely to say. Even though we have money issues, he's going out and buying stuff for her all the time. My mom has been suspicious of what my sister has been up to for a while, and has been using the fact that she doesn't sign out of Facebook on my mom's work laptop as an opportunity to check her messages. Recently, she found some really disturbing things between Kyle and my sister. They call each other my love, secret lover, babe, etc. Kyle says that he enjoys the time spent with Jane, including the sexual stuff. She's been spending a lot of time in Kyle and my mom's room, but only when mom isn't home. On top of this, my grandma found a couple sealed digital pregnancy tests in Jane's drawer while cleaning her room a bit, since she is gone at our dad's during most weekends. On top of this, my mom had found a couple of sex toys hidden by her bed, with the original boxes, as well as a passage from a play, She Is in Theater, where a father and daughter seem to get married. The only source of the toys that I can think of is Kyle, considering friends giving each other sex toys is not within my knowledge. All of this is honestly making me feel sick. It's hard to believe it, but I honestly believe that Kyle and my sister are doing sexual stuff or just freaking at this point. It's been hard on both my mom and I really don't know what to do about it. We've discussed setting up a hidden camera in their room in order to see if anything happens between them, but we're still unsure. I feel that we need more evidence if we want to move forward with this legally. I need your guys' thoughts and help through this. I don't really know what's the best course of action for something like this is. For clarity, my sister is the one initiating, she wants whatever is happening, and we know this isn't okay. Me, my mom, and my grandma are all aware of what's going on. Also, we do not have solid evidence yet that they have had sex or anything like that. Also, the hidden camera would be set up in my mom and Kyle's room, not in Jane's room. Update. The last share was kinda a jumbled mess of emotions, and my opinion on the matter has changed, so I will give a new summary here. Also, for clarity, I am 17, living in the United States. Specifically Florida. For the past few months, my mom has become increasingly suspicious of what my sister, Jane, has been up to. Multiple factors prompted this, but she ended up reading through the Facebook DMs between her fiancé, Kyle. Kyle and Jane discussed how they had done sexual things, supposedly relating to roleplay, and called each other names such as love, secret love, babe/baby. Jane and Kyle frequently spent time alone together in either Jane's or Kyle's room when nobody else was home. This made my mom a bit concerned and she started looking for more. In Jane's room, there were 2 digital pregnancy tests, reusable ones, and 2 sex toys. She has no income, no way to buy stuff on her own, so the only way she could have gotten those things was through Kyle. My mom decides to confront them both about it, and they defend themselves by saying that the pet names were just a part of roleplay. My sister does a lot of online roleplay, and she asked for the toys and birth control. Kyle wanted to be a cool dad so he bought them for her without asking my mom, or even saying anything about it. They talk it out, and my mom believes Kyle since he was bawling, something he's never done in their 4 years together. They both are let go without any punishment. Everything seems fine and dandy. I still had my doubts about it tying up that nicely, but my mom told me to just accept that it was gonna be that way, and there's nothing to worry about. Fast forward 3 days to today. My mom asked me to let her use an old phone of mine in order to set up a hidden audio recorder in her room to record what they did while we went out to the store as a peace of mind thing. I oblige, interested to see if there's still anything going on, but at this point I doubted it and didn't pay it much attention. We leave for about an hour, and when we get back, my mom retrieves the audio recorder. They were still in Kyle and my mom's room. I take the phone out to the patio and start listening through, jumping to random spots. At about 20 minutes into the recording, I hear my sister moaning, and I immediately felt my stomach sink. I felt sick. I stop the recording and call my mom outside. I give her the phone and she goes inside into the bathroom to listen to the full thing so she isn't questioned, start to finish. About half an hour later, as I'm sitting outside on the patio, I can hear my mom screaming at Kyle. I knew the fighting had started, and my shaking still hadn't gone away. Kyle opens the door to the bathroom only to find my mom having a complete meltdown at him, and he's standing there trying to defend himself. Jane and my other younger sister, who is 12, were standing outside of the bathroom. I immediately told both of them to go to their rooms and get my phone out, ready to call 911. After what seemed to be a whole half hour of my mom screaming at Kyle, and him meekly trying to defend himself, the door opens and I watch them walk to their room. Following that, I go into Jane's room and demand why she did it. She just gave me a bored expression and said I'm a freaking idiot. I start just asking so many questions, asking what she was thinking. My voice broke and I couldn't help but let tears flow. My trust in her was broken. She had lied straight to my face just 3 days ago about this exact thing. She just looked at me blankly, like she couldn't figure out why I was so upset. I managed to glean from her the following things. She admitted to having sex with him. She wasn't pregnant. She was the initiator, though it doesn't matter as it's still rape. She wanted out of the house. I left her room and began to have a mental breakdown of my own. It was too much and I couldn't handle it all at once. Screaming and crying, it felt awful. An hour or 2 passes and my mom comes to tell me what was going on. She learned that Kyle and Jane had been fooling around for close to a month now, and that they had sex. I asked her why she didn't call the cops immediately and get him arrested, and she responded with something similar to this. I remember being 14. Jane has a lot of hormones. Kyle has the mentality of a child and is too weak to say no to whatever Jane wanted. One of my friends who was 21 was in love with a 14-year-old girl. They had plans to get married, and his life was ruined when it was found out that they were having sex. He wasn't able to ever go to anywhere there were kids, and his life was awful. I wouldn't wish a life like that even on my worst enemy. Of course, after hearing that, I started telling her that he still raped her, and she responded by saying he did not force her. It's not rape. I try to tell her that it's still statutory rape by law, but she didn't want to hear about it. Said that I don't have a say in the matter. This legitimately pissed me off, but I had no choice but to accept what she was saying. I don't really accept it still, and I never will. I will loathe Kyle for the rest of my life, and will always wish the worst upon him. She also made me agree to tell literally nobody about this, as again, it wasn't a matter involving me. She also said that the reason he was staying there is that he could go and kill himself if he leaves today, and I don't want that on my hands. So here I am, listening to my mom defend the person who raped her daughter, and I'm not supposed to tell anyone? That's bullcrap. At this point, I'm seriously debating just saying F you and calling the cops or whoever to come have him arrested. I abhor having to sit here and wait while my emotionally and mentally unstable mother makes decisions that affect the whole family. Oh, by the way, she said that she still loves the F-er. Loves. Personally, I don't understand how you could ever love somebody that does that to your daughter. It doesn't make any sense at all. I'm worried that I might lose my mom's trust in me if I do anything, though. I don't want to turn on her. So, what should I do? I have a pretty good idea, but I want all of your guys' opinions. For now, my mother has banned them being alone in the same room together. They are no longer allowed to message each other either. Update, final. A lot has happened in the past few days and I'll try to explain what I can. On Thursday last week, I decided to tell my stepfather, my sister's biological father, about the situation. He made the right call and contacted DCF while I was at work, and they sent a social worker over. Once my shift finished, I went outside to wait for my mom. At this point, I didn't know a social worker was at the house, and was curious why she was taking so long. After about 10 minutes, she pulls up really fast in the parking spot, almost hitting me. I get up quickly and she tells my 12-year-old sister to stay in the car. She starts walking towards me and asks, "What the F were you thinking?" From then on, all I heard was just a flurry of insults from my mother as she described how horrible of a person I was and how I was going to ruin their lives. She personally blamed me for all of the upcoming hardships they were going to have, and how I would likely be the cause of Kyle committing suicide. She tells me I'm not going to tell the social worker anything at all. A few minutes later, Kyle starts texting my mom, apparently saying his goodbyes. I didn't know this at the time, but apparently he's had a gun with bullets all this time. My mom starts breaking down and tries to text and call him, but she gets no response. She got in the car and started slamming her head against the steering wheel, asking, "What the F is wrong with you? And how could you do this to us?" She then blames me for his death, and yells at me to get the F in the car. By that point, my 12-year-old sister is crying and I'm frozen in fear, and oblige. The ride home, which normally takes 10 minutes, took closer to 5. She was speeding and driving erratically, continuing to berate me the entire way home. She states that she has nothing to live for now, and she should just kill herself too. This just makes my sister start bawling, and she starts begging my mom not to do it. About halfway, I assume she got a text from Kyle, and started calming down and told my sister to wipe away her tears for the social worker. I was texting my dad the whole time and relaying info to him, all the while he was on the phone with the social worker. We pull up to my house and I see the social worker's car parked on the driveway. As we pull in, my mom makes me promise not to say anything, and to play dumb. I make the promise, knowing full well I'm gonna break it in the next minute. The social worker tells me that she received a report that sexual abuse had occurred at the house. I start telling her the story, but she then tells me to wait, as she requested a police officer to come on scene and she doesn't want me repeating myself. Once he shows up, I tell both of them what had happened, and I see more cops arriving on scene. I tell them that Kyle has a gun with ammo, and who resides in the house and where they are so they can get everyone out safely. Once they get things going, I ask if I can be taken away from the house while this happens to talk more with the social worker, and she obliges, taking me down the road in her car. I give her the full story, and she reassures me it was the right thing to do, and that it was brave. A couple police officers also come by the car and tell me the same thing. A couple hours later, a detective arrives at the scene and brings me into his car to record my explanation of the entire situation. I swear under oath that everything I say is true and it goes by smoothly. I also provide them the pictures I've taken of the evidence, and let them know that the phone with the audio is inside. Later that night, the cops start bringing our backpacks, which are then filled with clothes, to the social worker's car. Not too long after that, my dad pulls up with his wife in their car. He said he was proud of me for what I'd done. My sisters are also released to us, and we are told to meet up at a nearby gas station for more questioning. The night lasts a long while. By the time we get done with all the questions, it was around 5 a.m., and I got some much-needed sleep at my dad's house. As of right now, my sisters and I are finishing our last week of school, and we're living with our dad until further notice. There is a legal no-contact order for 2 weeks between us and our mom and Kyle, or any second or third parties. We are safe, and I'm glad for that fact. The court should be making a decision soon, and we should be going to grab our things later on. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell for more stories delivered to you. Thanks for listening. See you later.